Greetings to everyone in Durango. I want to thank Ash Pachari for his unwavering commitment to the World Sustainable Development Forum and for all of his hard work to put on this conference, despite the sudden loss of his father, Dr. R.K. Pachari, and, of course, the challenges of bringing together everyone at a time of global panic around coronavirus. Thank you, Ash. And please accept my deepest condolences. I can't imagine what it's like to be there without your dad, our dear friend, Patchi. Like all of you, I was deeply saddened to learn of his passing, and like all of you, I've been sharing my memories of Patchi and all the great things he did for the world, often at great personal expense. Thanks to Patchi, the world learned unequivocally that our planet is warming and changing at breakneck speed without any doubt caused by human destruction of nature and pollution of our air and water. And thanks to Patchi, I became a vegetarian and I lost some weight, which lowered my carbon footprint and my guilt every time I got into a car or on an airplane. Let's all give Patchi a great big round of applause, loud enough for him to hear in whatever place his spirit now resides. Thank you, Patchi. When Ash and Patchi asked me my advice about the purpose of this forum, I said it had to be focused on the climate crisis, but with an emphasis on speed. We all know that 2050, or by 2050, the world needs to transition to 100% clean, renewable energy and transportation fuel. By 2050, we also need to transform food production to regenerative agriculture, which is just a fancy name of doing things the way our parents and grandparents did for generations, harnessing the power of healthy soil and biomass instead of destroying the soil and polluting it with expensive petrochemical fertilizers. We all know we need to save about nature by 2050 and for the ecosystem services that nature provides to all of us. And to provide for 10 billion people that are expected by 2050, we need to end the concept of waste. So if we know all of this, and we still have 30 years to achieve it, what's the problem? Technology to deliver those goals is getting faster, better, cheaper every day, despite a few politicians who are paid by the fossil fuel industry to lie and walk backwards. Most of the world's leadership in government and business is committed to these kinds of goals. The problem is not the science. It's not the goals, it's not the lack of solutions, it's the down payment. While we focus on 2050, we can't lose sight of how much we need to accomplish towards those goals in the next 5 years, or maybe 10 at the most. In fact, I believe that if we fail to make a sufficient down payment on those commitments in the next very few years, what we do afterwards won't matter very much. By then, the planetary forces will take over and finish the job of overheating the planet that humans have so foolishly begun. And knowing that 99% of all plant and animal life ever to appear on Earth has served its purpose and disappeared before the arrival of industrial humans, we know the planet doesn't care if we're here. And it will go on without us, perhaps in much better shape. Make no mistake, this isn't a fight to save the planet. This is a fight to save our ability to live healthy, sustainable lives on this planet. So if we agree that speed is of the essence, what can we do to hasten deployment of the many solutions that this forum will be talking about this week? You know, last year we celebrated Mahatma Gandhi's 150th birthday. Well, who better to inspire us to a sustainable future and to answer that question than a man who ate very little, walked everywhere, and owned no more than would fit in a small Amazon Prime shipping box with no bubble wrap needed. And who better to look to for inspiration in a very challenging world than the man who said the earth provides enough to satisfy everyone's need, but not everyone's greed. I think Gandhi would start by reminding us that the earth's resources are finite. Not just tangible resources like forests and water and even money, but also intangible ones like goodwill, our health, and even the forgiveness of future generations for the actions we're taking today that knowingly rob them of a better life in the future. He would repeat something that Patchi taught me, and indeed something they both lived by. My life is my message. Let it be so with each of us. Now, of course, there's 100 little things that most of us probably already do to achieve a more sustainable lifestyle, like recycling, using LED light bulbs, even buying carbon offsets to offset the footprint of our travel. But I worry about the short-term decisions we make today that lock in a long-term and very scary future for our kids. So here are the three most important things that I think each of us can do today to keep things from getting worse decades from now, to put us on a path to achieving a sustainable, just, and healthy community. First, don't ever buy or lease another new gasoline or diesel-powered vehicle. Whether you drive it or someone else does later, you're locking in 20 years of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the lifetime of that machine. Next, give up eating meat, or at least give up beef. Do it today. I'm serious. Don't go home and face your family and say you care about your kids and you're dedicated to a sustainable future if you are not prepared to make that simple change in your own life. Doing so will make big changes for the planet today and will fundamentally change the food industry and our land use patterns of the future. Even better, follow Gandhi's example and become a vegan. If you don't think you can do it, or you wonder if it's actually healthy, I can recommend an amazing new documentary called Game Changers, produced by Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Cameron. It's actually one of the best documentaries I've ever seen on any topic, and it brilliantly shows how we've been misled by the meat industry in our diets for decades, the meat industry following the PR playbook of the tobacco industry, and it shows how we can dramatically improve our health and the health of the planet by giving up meat, or at least cutting way back, especially beef. And finally, perhaps most, vote in every election you can, no excuses, and only for candidates that support meaningful climate action now. Or go run for office yourself. If you don't, we're going to get more of the current approach that politicians like America's Trump and Brazil's Bolsonaro and Australia's Scott Morrison have sadly been following, cutting back environmental protections and taking us backwards on the Paris Climate Agreement. By the way, Leonardo DiCaprio and I met with Trump right after he was elected, hoping to persuade him that good environmental and good economic policies were two sides of the same coin. He told me and Leo that he does believe in climate change and does have a plan to address global warming. He said the US can lower temperatures dramatically just by switching from Fahrenheit to Celsius. He actually said that. But seriously, it's time for big commitments and action from each one of us in our personal and professional lives. It's also too late to just do that. As 16-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg has said, we all need to become climate firefighters and rescue those who are still asleep in the burning house. Wake them up. Get them to understand why they too should take at least those 3 steps I asked of you. But let's start acting like the house is on fire. And then who will be the first to say, I can do with a little less, that our children will have a lot more? Who will be the first to say that my success will not only be measured by the number on the bottom of a balance sheet, but by the balance of clean air, clean water, and healthy landscapes that I bequeath to my children? And who will be the first to answer the call to action that rang out across the world 6 decades ago when a sane, competent president of the United States challenged us to ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country? Well, if today is the day we all understand the urgency of the crisis and the need to make a major down payment on our 2050 goals before it's too late, committing ourselves to act like the house is on fire, then we will be making the most patriotic contribution to our nations and our communities that even President Kennedy, Mahatma Gandhi, or R.K. Patchi could have imagined. And that will be a fitting legacy for all 3 of them. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you all and working together to a brighter future.